history. Abraham, Isaac, Ruth, King David, flocks of sheep, glorious sunrise and sunset, mountains, green vineyards, standing above the clouds. It's a pleasure living here day to day. And for a Jew, it's home.
Not here, no. It's a lovely place, but it's not for me.
How do you teach a blind man what the color red is? You have to experience it. Having lived here for 2 years, something begins to grow on you and in you.
One family. And you can talk to the people here like you're talking to your own relatives. And you know, sometimes you get angry at your relatives, but you still love them.
I wake up every morning with a thrill, as if I was a teenager again. I am so happy living in Medinat Yisrael.
Some 13 miles south of Jerusalem, amid forests, vineyards, and wind-swept hills, you enter the biblical region of Efrat. King David grazed his sheep as a boy on these Judean hills. Rachel died nearby while giving birth to her younger son Benjamin. She is buried a few miles to the north in the city of Bethlehem. Today, Efrat is once again a thriving Jewish community. It was founded 5 years ago by some 150 American and South African families, headed by Shlomo Riskin, former rabbi of Lincoln Square Synagogue in Manhattan. We have chosen to tell the story of this religious town and its people because they illustrate the problems, possibilities, and promise of Aliyah. A promise not only of continued Jewish survival, but of possible Jewish redemption.
I'm very privileged to be living in Israel, in the Judean hills, that I see here Jewish history converging, that from this window, in one direction is Hebron and the other direction is Jerusalem, that Hebron symbolizes Jewish past and Jerusalem symbolizes Jewish future, and that hopefully Efrat is the bridge between our origins and our messianic dreams.
It is the holiday of Sukkot, and the residents of Efrat are celebrating the dedication of a new Sefer Torah. The Torah was donated to the community by Freddie Ehrman, a member of Rabbi Riskin's former synagogue in mid-Manhattan. When Rabbi Riskin made Aliyah to Efrat, he hoped that many members of his Lincoln Square synagogue would follow his example. But only a handful chose to do so. Mr. Ehrman was not one of them.
I am not terribly conflicted about not having made full Aliyah yet, but I devote a lot of time to Israel. I'm involved politically in lobbying for Israel, and I think I'm making a significant contribution to the state of Israel being in the United States.
No one can make a truly significant contribution to the state of Israel without making it his physical everyday home, says Rabbi Riskin. Among those who live next door to him in Efrat is his married daughter, Batya. It is very important not to be a footnote to Jewish history, says Rabbi Riskin, but a chapter heading.
I don't blame those who don't come. I feel sorry for them. I think the chance of living a full Jewish life is only possible in Israel.
I have my business there, and frankly, I guess it's hard to leave at this stage of my life the business that I've built up. It's like the Jews who went to Bavel and didn't come back with Ezra and Nehemiah. I'm one of those Bavlim who live in New York.
There is one tradition that says that the spot we are standing on now is Har Moriah, and this is a mountain which is connected by tradition, it's not proved, with a place where Avraham almost sacrificed his son Yitzhak in the Akedah.
Jerusalem, for 2,000 years the object of Jewish dreams, prayers, and yearnings. Since May 14th, 1948, however, no serious diaspora Jew can discharge his obligation to the city by piously proclaiming next year in Jerusalem at the conclusion of the Passover Seder.
It is amazing to think that Abraham was to have sacrificed Isaac at this spot right here. And now us back in the 20th century are able to relive it and make this dream happen again. The Zionist dream.
From the moment of landing of the plane, you're home. It feels like you're walking in your own backyard.
We love Canada. We do love Canada.
Canada's okay, but the feeling here is different. That's the thing. You feel here you're a Jew.
No, I haven't got emotional yet, no.
Our minds, we know where we stand, but I'm entangled with certain business that isn't so simple to get out of.
Are you planning to make Aliyah to Israel?
Please God, I hope one day that we will. My husband has a business in America.
We don't have definite plans yet. Our children are finishing school in the States. We feel that's very important because they're of the age that if they went to school here, I'm afraid they would not be able to cope very well with it.
We'll be joining these tourists on their trip to new Jewish settlements south of Jerusalem. The next stop, Rachel's tomb in Bethlehem. Even the simplest trip through Israel can turn into a spiritual experience for Jewish tourists. At every stop, they encounter their sources, the roots of Judaism that stretch back 4,000 years, and beckon them to join today's Israelis in making present-day Jewish history. For Sarah Blank from New York, the visit to Rachel's tomb is an emotional experience. In a moment, she will walk to the tomb and cry. 2 of Sarah's 4 sons live in Israel. The separation, she says, is painful, and so it must have been for Rachel, whose beloved sons went into exile.
Where are they? Well, I guess they are very comfortable where they are, and there are problems of leaving, and there always have been, or ever since she was buried here. There have been problems, and all her sons have gone out, and they just don't come back.
The destiny of the Jewish people is being written here. And if you want to participate in that destiny, if you want to participate not merely in Jewish survival, but in the possibility of Jewish redemption, that can only be done here in Israel. If they consider themselves observant Jews, they have no real choice. They have to live here. The same Bible that commands them to keep the Sabbath commands them to live in Israel.
We are traveling eastwards, and you're getting closer and closer to the desert. It's getting drier and drier. If you're worried about the road, when we moved to Tekoa, the road was half this width. I'm not exaggerating. It was half this width, and if a car came from the other direction, you just closed your eyes and prayed.
Somebody has to do it. And sure, there are lots of hardships in being here, but if nobody came, there would be a weaker foundation here. So somebody's got to be willing to do it. And then the question is, so how are we going to excuse ourselves from that responsibility? It's very hard to find any kind of rationalization that sticks for that.
Of course, to come here, you have to have a strong sense of commitment. You have to have a deep faith, because you need faith, amunah, to be here. At the same token, I think it's important to show that people do live relatively normal lives, even in, the uncertainties of life here. There is a certain amount of normalcy. And I think the quality of life in some respects is better than that of America.
If I had stayed in America, everything would have been absolutely predictable. You know, I know that the course our professional lives would have taken. You know, we would have been upwardly mobile and probably bought a bigger house, and it's all very predictable. Here, it's very exciting. Who knows what will be? You know, the possibilities are before us. It's a little bit scary on one hand, but it's also incredibly exciting, and there's such a feeling of empowerment that goes with that, because we can make it be how we want it to be. You know, the possibilities are incredible.
Not here, no. It's a lovely place, but it's not for me.
I don't know.
Anything that we can describe to you about what life is like in Israel and an American listens to, they're going to hear it through an American perspective. And it's very different here. To be able to see clearly what's going on here, you've got to be willing to pick yourself up at least a little bit to get out of your normal way of seeing and believing and assuming.
Here is the city of Efrat, one of the most successful new towns in Israel today, and in particular in Judea and Samaria. Even though this is a city and therefore open to anyone to come and live here, it has a distinctly modern Orthodox religious type of atmosphere. One of the reasons for this is that one of the driving forces behind Efrat was Rav Shlomo Riskin, a well-known American rabbi from Lincoln Square Synagogue in New York, who a number of years ago made Aliyah specifically to come and live in Efrat and brought with a fair number of his congregants with him.
The change is miraculous. Even in 1983, when we first made Aliyah, my parents came. And with tears in her eyes, my mother said, "I don't understand. When I was a little girl of 3 years old, I left the small town of Lubin in Poland. And you came back to Lubin? The streets aren't paved. Everything is so primitive. There's not even a grocery store." Now, there's a flourishing city with a mayor and a city council and paved streets and lights and a post office and a whole school system from kindergarten to rabbinical school and all the amenities you might want, even a beauty parlor.
Efrat is a success story even by Israeli standards, and its population is growing rapidly. Today, there are 300 families living in Efrat, 50% of them native-born Israelis. Eventually, the town will be home for 5,000 families. There are dozens of communities like this in Israel, offering a full Jewish religious life. Efrat is only 20 minutes away from Jerusalem and offers pioneering with a bit of luxury. Its 7 neighborhoods are separated from traffic, commerce, and industry. Public parks, children's playgrounds, and safe pedestrian sidewalks make Efrat a mother's paradise.
I don't have to watch my children 24 hours a day. They can go and play outside with their friends. I don't have to worry about them being run over or crossing the road and getting lost or anything like that, because Efrat's a small, well, as big as it is, it's a small place.
So intimate that Rabbi Riskin knows by name every schoolchild who comes to morning prayer in the synagogue. Time magazine called Rabbi Stephen Shlomo Riskin Stevie Wonder for his feat of turning a 15-member shul in mid-Manhattan into an Orthodox congregation of 3,000 members. In Efrat, Rabbi Riskin is no less a wonder. 90% of Efrat's residents are religious, and his biggest accomplishment, says Rabbi Riskin, was to establish for them a sense of community that exists only in diaspora synagogues.
You're living in a town in which the overwhelming majority of the people take prayer, and I hope human relationships, very, very seriously. And that all helps the religious feeling that one has and one's sense of closeness to God.
We came to the Makaz Klita the first night. We arrived about 6:30 at night, March 20th, and the Sachnut picked us up in a van and we had 12 pieces of luggage. And when we got to the Makaz Klita, they left the driver left the 12 pieces of luggage and the 2 kids that we had at that time on the corner in front of the house that we were supposed to be. And within minutes, there was a Romanian family, an Argentinian family, a Russian family, an American family. There was four men and a South African. 5 men helped us bring in our luggage. And today, one of my best friends is the Romanian fella that helped me about 1.5 years ago bring my luggage in.
Happy birthday, Yehuda.
This is a special day in the life of Yehuda Goodman. He was born in Israel exactly a year ago today, and his grandparents, who live in the States, have come all the way to Efrat to celebrate his first birthday with him. His parents are members of Rabbi Riskin's former synagogue in Manhattan.
I'm happy here. And my wife, I feel, is happy, but I doubt if she could ever be as happy as I am.
I'm not.
The kids are delighted to be here, and they don't even know it.
That loneliness, that extreme loneliness that you know, they are miles and miles and miles a day, an ocean, a country, a continent away, a big, big, big distance. Sometimes I think I'll never make it again. I'll never be able to come back. It's a big trip. The preparation, the money. We're not such rich people. I'm a Jew. The first time the plane came within sight of Lud Airport, I pitted-patted, I was excited. But it's not such an excitement that it would change my whole life. This is changing my whole life.
To be honest, that's the hardest part about being in Israel. I miss them very much, and I'm sorry that my children aren't growing up having a closer relationship with their grandparents. But I believe that Israel is the place for all Jews to be.
You have to have the spirit, I think, behind it, whether it's 80 or whether it's 60 or whether it's 50. If you don't have the spirit, age has nothing to do with it.
Like this here? Yes. No, not for me.
Hopefully, I'm going to come here. It's very hard because my husband is still tied up, and I'm trying to get him to get untied.
I would say to everyone, come to Israel. I mean, if my parents would come and my sister and brother would come, my problems would be solved. I would be the happiest person in the world because I'd have my family here, and if my friends were here, then to me it would be a perfect life.
Mr. and Mrs. Landau live in New York, but purchased a house in Efrat and come here each year for the holidays with their children. Mr. Landau is currently president of Lincoln Square Synagogue in Manhattan. We ask him how a religious Jew can justify the fact that he does not fulfill the mitzvah of making the land of Israel his full-time home.
We are helping to bring other people here and engaging in activities until until I myself come that I feel is helping other people to fulfill that mitzvah. But obviously you can see the question makes me uncomfortable because it is a question that does not have a proper answer.
I think, to be very frank with you, that had I not announced so many times that I was coming to Israel, I probably would have backed down.
I feel very comfortable there. I'm president of the Lincoln Square Synagogue, which is one of the best-known institutions of Judaism in America, and I don't feel insignificant there at all.
I enjoyed being the rabbi of Lincoln Square Synagogue. I felt I was doing something which was very significant. I enjoyed heading the educational institutions that I headed. And I came to Israel with a great deal of trepidation. Nevertheless, in perspective, it was the best decision I ever made. That doesn't mean there aren't problems here, profound problems. Religious and non-religious. Peace, war, they're important problems. Because for the first time in 2,000 years, we have the opportunity and the challenge to work them out and direct our own destiny.
In Efrat, as you can see now from the road, you find apartments, and you find townhouses, and you find houses.
במלט. אתה מבין מלט? In cement.
Israel wants you. What do you say?
Yes, well,
That's very nice.
I don't think people who don't find Israel a land of Kedusha are going to come very quickly.
I would like to. I don't know whether I will or not.
This is the middle of nowhere, but it's also the middle of everywhere.
You have to be really an idealist to come.
Efrat is beautiful, but I don't think it's my style. John.
I remember I was here in 1968, and I was studying at Hebrew University, and they were all complaining about the toilet paper at the time. And we said it was hard to imagine that someday when we face our Maker, we're going to say we didn't come to Israel because we didn't like the toilet paper here.
The quality of life here is far greater for me personally than the quality of life was in mid-Manhattan. I see the Hiehudai in front of me, the hills of Judea. Every house with a garden. The calendar is my calendar. I'm in sync with the calendar. We just completed the festivals. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot. The whole country was involved in the festival for 3 weeks. It's a pleasure living here day to day. And for a Jew, it's home.